Alastair, I didn't have to do too much to pick them up after such an impressive win on the weekend. The vibing last week.
Oh, it was exciting for our club. You know, we've been working really, really hard without getting great results. That was our first win since the Carlton game, probably 6 or 7 rounds ago. So, just puts the boy in the step of everyone around the footy club. You know, girls had a good win on the weekend, so Croc and I were laughing at the start of the week that it's great that both sides had a victory on the same weekend. So, yeah, and a big challenge against Adelaide. So, you know, they're top of the ladder. So to try to replicate that type of performance and intensity is going to be a real challenge against the Adelaide side. But we're looking forward to taking a step forward and see how we go.
Given your form last week and the week that they've had, is there any sort of sense that you might be able to grab a scalp for the last round?
Oh, we're just going to go out and try and play exactly the same way as what we did last week. You know, our intensity around the footy was much superior than the week before against GWS. You know, we're really disappointed with our contest work against the GWS side, and we're a lot better in that space last week against Richmond. And you know, the game starts in that phase of the game, and we're consistently good in that space. You know, Big X and LDU and Luke Parker, George Wardlaw, Harry Sheasel, Tom Powell, all those guys through the middle of the ground did really, really strong jobs for us last week. The challenge is that is a real strength of the Adelaide side. That's why they're on top of the ladder. So, irrespective of the personnel that they've got playing or not, you know, they're right on the eve of finals. They'll be really, really keen to prepare themselves as well as they possibly can for a finals launch in the next 4 weeks. So, we're up for the challenge, and we'll see how we go.
Do you expect them to be shaken at all? And are you surprised that the ranking situation just hasn't been sorted yet?
Well, we can't really control it, and I'm not even certain that there's an outcome at this point in time. So that's for Adelaide to deal with, and you know, all we can control is how we approach the game. And what we do know is if we turn up with the type of attitude and mindset to contest like we did against GWS, then we're going to battle to win this game. But if we have the same sort of ferocity at the ball like we had against Richmond, then we'll give ourselves a chance.
What finally clicked against Richmond?
Well, probably the stuff around the contest. You know, X and those guys just getting to work and making that really hard. Applied a lot of pressure to the Richmond ball carrier, and you know, they couldn't get their game up and going and control the ball in the manner that they like, and that allowed us to then win more of the footy ourselves. So we're really pleased with the way that we played last week against the Tigers. But as we said, it's a new game against Adelaide this week.
Justin did a fair bit of the session by himself. Is he okay?
Yeah. Well, he's been managing a sort of grumbly knee for the best part of the last 6 weeks, really, and you know, he tried to carry it for a couple of weeks. We rested it for a week, and then he was nearly right to play the GWS game, but we decided to rest him again just to make sure it was totally right for the Richmond game, and it was. He came in and made a really important contribution for us last week. In once again part of our midfield that was able to knock off the Tigers. So yeah, we just got to manage his loads. You know, it's the last game of the season for us this week. We just want to make sure he got to the line nice and fresh and ready to go.
There's some talk that the club may have a multi-year deal for Marcus Winhager. Is he someone you'd like to have at the club next year?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of speculation around, isn't there, at the moment, and particularly around everything that's going on with St Kilda and some of the signings that they're either projected to make or, you know, the re-signing of Nez. But we've said all along, and there's 17 other clubs that will have exactly the same answer. We're in the same game as trying to get our list better, and you know, but that's their list management decisions that we'll probably get to post season more so than what we're worrying about it right now.
What in particular do you need as a list in 2026 and beyond?
Well, given where we sit on the ladders, it's a fair bit. But no, what I said on radio this morning, we need to be smart. You know, we know within the walls of our footy club that there's some young players here that need opportunity and are ready to emerge in the next 1 or 2 seasons, and we saw that last week. You know, our forward line, once Zerha went down, there was a stage there last week where 5 of our players in our front end had 35 games of experience collective. But that's really, really exciting because you see a guy like Trembath who's just come in from nowhere, really. He was playing Blackburn suburban footy earlier this year, and now he's playing AFL footy and he's kicked 3 goals in his first 2 games. in each of those 2 games. So that's really exciting for us, and just giving those young players some opportunity. So there's one side of us that wants to improve our list by going to market and trying to find guys that might want to come to your footy club. We need to be in the trade game too, but we also recognise that some of our younger players that the rest of the competition perhaps haven't seen on the big stage just yet need that opportunity to grow into the players that they want to become.
Brad Scott said yesterday that it seems like football players and clubs are targeting free agency because the draft is heavily compromised, in his view. Is that something that you would agree with?
Yeah, well, it's been as challenging a time as ever in the game to how you secure your players, and whether it's to do with Northern academies, the next generation academies, the Indigenous academies, it's really difficult to, I think to be fair, the total rebuild, any club giving consideration to that just won't go there ever again, unless there can be some sort of mechanism where you can see opportunity to be able to improve your list. And by and large, many have thought, well, we'll be able to improve our list to be able to get really high draft picks, and maybe we'll trade a player to get another high draft pick. But yeah, you just can't get into the high end of the draft because of all the compromises to the first round in particular. So that has made it really difficult for all the clubs that are in the bottom 8 on the ladder, the St Kildas, the Carltons, the North Melbournes, the Richmonds. They'll be the ones that, because they're in that boat of trying to get their list better, they're the sides that are scrambling, trying to work out how they can get some talent into their footy club.
I don't know how much attention you paid to the 22 under 22 side, but Paul Curtis wasn't in there.
Yeah, I thought he must have been. I looked at it and thought his date of birth must have been that he was 23. God, how the hell he's not in that side is unbelievable. Down there in the All-Australian side for Mark of the Year. So anyway, we know within the walls of our footy club, they must have done it before last week's game, did they? Because he kicked a handy 5 last week, career best. So we loved it. But he's just a great example of some of the players that we've got at the club that are just young, that need an opportunity to emerge, and you just see his growth and development as a player over the last couple of years in particular. And we think there's others at our footy club that can do that if they're just given the chance.
Just on that, given your focus on development, is Mark Williams someone you look to bring in potentially or have a chat to about this? Yeah.
Well, Choco's been in the game for a long period of time, and been in a lot of clubs and been a part of success too. He knows what footy's all about, and I know him very well, and lives just around the corner. So we just got to see. I mean, all clubs, probably since August the 1st, are trying to work out what their structures are going to look like, and there's probably a little bit more opportunity to appoint people now and resource your coaching staff a little bit more because of the lift in the soft cap. So we'll work that out, but right at the present time, we don't have a spot available. Yeah.
Is that the major area you'd like to get more investment into? Is it development, or is it another thing to help you get to that next level next year?
Yeah, well, there's a whole heap of things in that space. The thing that we want to do first and foremost, there's still a lag from COVID, believe it or not, and the cuts to the soft cap in the first instance, where 3 million was stripped out of football department budgets overnight. And the lag to that is that there's still some people in the industry, right across all clubs, that are underpaid. And we want to correct that first and foremost at our football club, and then see what's left over in terms of what we resource. Now, sometimes that will be human resource, and sometimes that will be program resource. Do we need more massage in our program, or do we want to go on a camp, or whatever? Some of these things that have been taken out of our program over the course of the last 5 or 6 years are things that we'd like to address. But Todd Viney and Jen Watt are the two that will manage the financial implications of all of that. But we'll sit down over the next 3 to 4 weeks once we get out of this weekend and can take a breath and have a look at what our structure might look like, and also work out how we pay for it as well.
Not looking at the win-loss column, you've been in a lot more contests this season. Do you see it as a positive heading into next year, and that there has been progress made since you came into the club?
Yeah, well, there has been, and it's hard when you look at the win-loss and say, well, we're 2 wins and a draw further than last year, and so that's progress. But our supporters and even us, and probably the wider football community, would like that progress to be a little bit quicker. but it's you've got to have a hell of a lot of patience in this game in terms of just knowing when guys are ready. We saw a young fella, Matt Whitlock, play last week, and he's just not physically ready to compete really with the big guys. But another pre-season, and he'll really emerge as a player for us, I'm sure. So, and as I said, we had 5 of those guys in our front end for the greater part of last week's game. So, we've been in games a lot more. I think we've been on record constantly throughout the course of this year saying that the first half of last year we weren't in a game at 3/4 time for the first 11 games of last year, and even their own supporters are probably turning the telly off. This year they're seeing some emergence of some of our players, and some of that is the younger ones, like a Finn O'Sullivan, a Colby McKercher, and even saw what Harry Sheasel did last week. But some of it is guys like Sherry and Curtis and Tom Powell and these types of guys that have been around. Cam Zurhaar's had a really, really strong year for us. Disappointing that he misses this week. He had surgery yesterday on a syndesmosis, so unfortunately he can't play this last game of the year. But we've seen some emergence of some players that just gives us hope that we're on the right track.
Just back on the compromise draft and how you see that, where do you sit with it, of what it should look like then if there were to make changes? Are you the top 10? Where do you sit?
Yeah, well, the competition made a really significant investment many years ago to go away from the zones and make it a pure draft, to try to equalise the competition and have it more competitive, so that every team over a period of time would get an opportunity to certainly get to the pointy end of the ladder. And I think for a fair period of time in the first 20 years of that, I think everyone bar Gold Coast, I think, had made a prelim final. But then in the last 6, 8, 10 years, there's been all these compromises around father-sons and Northern Academies and Next Generation Academies, and that's just meant that the actual purity of what their initial intention was to equalise the competition has just made it more and more difficult. And some of the clubs that have fortunately been up the top of the ladder have benefited from that. They can attract players a hell of a lot more. The whole free agency is another concept that's really been in for, I'm not sure, probably 10, 15 years now. Their initial intention was that, they'll go for the money. North Melbourne will pay them a stack of money, and the player will come to North Melbourne because there's a big paycheck there. Very few players are coming to the lower clubs because of free agency, and that is a mechanism that wasn't in place when they said, okay, we're going to go to the purity of a draft to equalise the competition. All these changes that have been made has made it more difficult to actually equalise the competition. So those sides that do find themselves in the bottom part of the ladder find it really tough to navigate the path back up to the top. It can be done. We've seen it with Brisbane, we've seen it with Adelaide. But that's why when people say, oh, gee, you should be doing this a hell of a lot quicker, just want to tell the whole footy world it's pretty bloody hard.
Do they need to then just look at the draft, or is it sort of two-pronged attack, or is it free agency?
Well, I think they're looking at all of those things. I think especially with Greg Swan coming in, it's been at club land, and he's been part of the whole growth of Brisbane Lions, and they've had the benefit of Northern Academies, I might add. But it is something I'm sure the league's looking at, because their initial philosophy with it is, how can we equalise the competition and give every club at different stages a chance to compete and have their supporters excited that their team's going to play finals and maybe even get to the pointy end. That's as hard as it's ever been now. We've seen the same clubs, and what they were trying to get away from is the Liverpools, the Chelseas, the Man Cities, the Man Uniteds. What they're hoping for is a Leicester City or a Blackburn Rovers, which is 1985. We're going back a long time. These little suburban clubs that get an opportunity to compete at the pointy end of the season, and I think the whole competition has loved that concept, but it's just slowly whittled away over the last decade.
Would you keep father-son, or would you go for, obviously there's the romance side of things, there's the pain that they're worth, or getting rid of it altogether?
Yeah, well, North have been the benefit of father-sons, and that's the argument. It's particularly for some of the clubs that haven't got the depth of being in the competition for a long period of time, so they can't have the same father-son opportunity. So philosophically, if you're just talking about purity, then you'd equalise the competition by no compromise at all for at least the first round and possibly even the second round. Thanks, guys. A couple of headlines there, I reckon.
Pick some things up.